In Genesis, we find pretty much the fundamental expression of reality through a kind of symbolic grammar. I agree. What do you think would be the probably material pattern in Genesis that exemplifies communal ontology? My first thought would be that it's something to do with Eve coming from Adam, but I haven't meditated on it yet. So I think the fundamental idea would be the first one, which is that God creates the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth is described as formless and void. So the earth is potential, and then the heavens stands for actuality. And when the heavens, I would suggest, in the first few verses of Genesis, are referring to the highest heavens. It is the heavens where the angels reside, the heavenly host. It is where God exists it is where God is fully present in creation, right? And then because God is fully present in the heavens, right? He is the God of heaven. That is the Gentile name for God. You find it. This is a completely different topic, but you find it all throughout ancient civilizations, this idea of associating God with the sky. You have the notion of the God of heaven, God the Most High. All of these names you find it in China, you find it in the Native Americas, you find it in Europe, you find it in Africa, you find it in the Middle East, everywhere, because it was the Gentile name of God that was revealed to Noah. And the entire purpose of the biblical story is the revelation of the name of God. So in the Noahic covenant, God is revealed as God the Most High. In the Mosaic covenant, it is Yahweh, I am that I am. And then in the new covenant, it is obviously Jesus Christ. So yeah, God is God the Most High, and so God is associated with the heavens because that is where God makes his dwelling place. Now, why is the heavens fully actualized in relation to the earth, which is formless and void, or pure potential? The reason why is because every being is in a natural motion, right? This is something Maximus the Confessor says, and we proceed from the Word of God, right? And then we're meant to return back to God. And the way we return to God is through God revealing himself and then us answering him. This is synergy, right? And God makes himself fully present in the heavens. That is why the angels have one choice to either fall or not fall, while we have many. It's because of our relative ignorance. This is a huge topic. I'm going to do a video on it soon, but because the natural motion of every creature begins and ends in God, wherever God is fully revealed to the creature, that is the end of their motion. That is where they need to choose, am I falling into the abyss of myself, or am I entering into God? That is why the angels have one choice, because they are created in a state where God is fully revealed to them in the heavens, while for us on earth, God is not yet fully revealed. So we have two problems in the book of Genesis. The problem is that the earth is formless and void. The earth is formless and void because God has not yet made his presence there. But then we have the Spirit hovering over the face of the deep, hovering over the face of the water, and that Spirit is sent by the Word to enter into creation and to glorify it. And then we have the creation days. So that union of heaven and earth, where we have the Spirit sent from heaven onto earth, is meant to unite heaven with earth, which essentially just means bringing God into creation. Because God already begun as fully, in the first day, he is fully present in the heavens. The entire story of the Bible is the indwelling of God in creation, in the world, to the fullest extent. And that, the fullest extent of God's union with the world, is what we call the eschaton. That is what is described in the final chapters of the book of Revelation. So in the beginning of the Bible, we have Genesis, where the earth is formless, void, and deep. Then we have God creating, and then he makes man in his own image. And what does he tell man to do? He tells him to cultivate the earth. That is the exact same thing that God had been doing for the first 6 creation days. So we see that man is the image of God because man has been given the role of doing what God does. This is synergy, right? Because synergy is us doing the will of God, doing the activities of God, entering into the divine life, being deified through walking in his ways, walking after God. And that walking after God is made possible because God has walked, he has tabernacled among us in Jesus Christ. So Adam is given the task of cultivating and maturing creation. And that task is given to him as image of God, and it is the exact same thing that God has been doing during the creation week. So I think that the most fundamental pattern in Genesis if we're trying to discern a sort of communal logic there, is the heavens made fully actual, which are meant to be united with earth. So Satan, I agree with, or I'm very open to the idea that C.S. Lewis has in the Space Trilogy, that Satan was the guardian angel of the Earth, because traditionally there's a guardian angel for every single planet, so why not the Earth? Why not Satan, who is the highest of the angels, right? Satan's only natural purpose, his only goal, was to glorify man. If you think about it, Satan is not the one who inherits the Earth. Man is the one who inherits the Earth, because man is the image of God. Now, the angels do inherit the earth, but through man, because it is the natural purpose of angels, the purpose given to them by God for which they are created, is to help man. So I was actually just thinking about this last night, but if you look at the story of Satan, the task of Satan is to glorify man. This is said in the Bible, by the way. I'm not just speculating here. But Satan is meant to help man. What does he do? He deceives him. So we see that it's literally the inverse of what he was meant to do. It's literally the precise opposite, the inverse of his natural purpose. This absolute inversal of our natural purpose, which is only found in God, that is the essence of sin. So for Satan, it was an absolute sin because it was an absolute reversal, which he made with the full knowledge of what he was doing, while for Adam and Eve, it was different, especially for Eve, because Eve, if you actually read the text carefully, Eve is not present when God gives the commandment not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which means that Eve only received it from Adam, which means Adam was more culpable for the sin because he had received the law directly from God. I was actually just thinking, sorry for rambling, but I was just thinking about a parallel between Moses and the Israelites. So the Israelites commit all of these sins, and yes, they're punished for it. All of the Israelites who worship the golden calf are killed they die in the desert, but a lot of them commit these sins as well, but they're not in the law. Even in the law that Moses gives, there are different punishments for sin. It's not all just death, right? But Moses, why does he not get to inherit the promised land? Well, all he did was have one tiny insee-winsee moment of lack of faith in God, where he struck the rock in an act of I think sort of an act of unfaithfulness or impatience, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. I need to read the text again. But Moses has this tiny little sin, and God says, you don't get to inherit the promised land. You are not going to enter the promised land, but Joshua will. Why is that the case? Well, God clearly does say it is a punishment for Moses' sin, right? It says it at least 2 or 3 times in the text. Why is that the case? Why can the Israelites commit these sins, which seem to be much worse, and still get to inherit the promised land, while Moses, he does this one tiny little thing and he doesn't get to inherit the promised land? I think it has to do with the same principle of culpability for sin is directly proportional to the knowledge we have of God. So Moses was face to face with God. Moses spoke to God. Moses was glorified. He was deified. He walked down Mount Sinai, and the Israelites said, "Veil yourself. You are shining with divine glory." So because Moses had received the revelation, he literally received the law of God. His rebellion against God, even that tiny little rebellion, was enough to make him unworthy of receiving, of entering into the promised land. So, why I'm talking about that, I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I was talking about Satan, I was talking about Genesis. So that would be to answer your question, that would be the fundamental idea of communion here. It's a communion of heaven and earth, where heaven, here, last key point here, when I was talking about the angels and how the natural purpose of the angels is glorifying man, that is communal logic here, because angels become fully themselves through giving themselves to man, and man becomes, and the earth becomes fully itself through being interior to heaven, through heaven becoming interior to it. So you have this union of the two distinct identities, and you see how both identities can only be themselves insofar as they are united. That is communion. That is the essential point, that identity can never be understood as self-relational, but always in communion.